and I had like fire all over my costume and, like it just came out and I would smack popcorn out of the audience's hands and just like try to be that total jerk. So that's where I think I've learned to be comfortable on camera or to do public speaking.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Spear and Clover podcast, the show for visionary entrepreneurs who see the world as it could be and can't help but take action. As always, I'm your host, Jason Skisik, and have I got a great show for you today. Today's guest is my friend Dustin Bogle. Dustin has taken a career started in backyards and has evolved into one of the best team builders and delegators that I know. He's the owner of several Lead the Way fitness locations, as well as Gym Reinforcements, his remote sales and admin company that is changing the way fitness entrepreneurs work all over the country. Please welcome my friend, Dustin Bogle. What's up, everybody? It's Jason Skisik with Spear and Clover podcast. I'm here today with Dustin Bogle, owner of Lead the Way Fitness and Gym Reinforcements. What's up, Dustin?
Hey, man. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited, man.
Dude, I'm so excited to have this conversation. I was just telling you before, and it's a super relaxed kind of environment, but of the people I've interviewed so far, you and I have worked around each other a lot. I've worked with you a little bit, but I'm really excited because I think there's some really interesting kind of deeper dive stuff that you've got going on that I don't know about. So I'm really pumped to hear more about what you got going on out there.
I will actually tell you this, Jason, you have no idea. And that's why I'm excited as well to share with you the can of worms that you decide to open here on the podcast. And I actually thought I would start things off with a pretty interesting, note about my background that most people don't know, which is pretty unique. And that is I used to do professional wrestling for 10 years. And so I'm talking elbow drops, leg drops, Hulk Hogan, rub yourself up in baby oil, walk out in front of hundreds of people. And you don't meet many pro wrestlers. It's kind of like an underground thing until you become so well known. You're a household name and you're working for Vince McMahon. Yeah. But people often don't know, how does somebody get there? And that's what I did. Never got to that level, but, pretty good amount of success traveling the world. And so that's kind of where my story I like to start with is like, a kid with no confidence, a kid with no friends. And then, you never know when a mentor will enter your life or somebody that will change the direction of where your trajectory was headed. And that was for me in high school. Again, kind of a nerd. I would stand over in the quad and read my magazines. I don't know if anybody remembers the magazine Nintendo Power, but I'd be off to the side and I'm reading it and I had no friends and I'm socially awkward. I don't play sports. I'm not going to prom. And then some guy just comes and taps me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, man, I see you're over here all alone. Why don't you come over here and hang out with us?" Yeah. And these group of guys would get together and they'd just be talking about what happened on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. And like, did you see what The Rock did and Undertaker? And they'd talk about 80s wrestling, Hulk Hogan. And so I just kind of got sucked into that world. And I started watching it because I don't want to be the guy that doesn't know what's going on. And then I find out these guys, one of them has a dad that's a contractor. And he built him a ring for his birthday in his backyard. Wow. Because he said, "Hey, instead of going out doing all kinds of crazy things and being in gangs, I'd rather know you're here safe in my backyard and I'll build you a ring if it keeps you here and you're not getting into trouble." So after that was built, it was over. And we were in the backyard and we're doing the whole backyard wrestling thing. You probably saw on the news, kids throwing each other through tables and hit each other with drywall and all that good stuff. So that's kind of, like where it started. And then I eventually got trained and went on and came up with the wrestling character Diablo. And I had like fire all over my costume and, like it just came out and I would smack popcorn out of the audience's hands and just like try to be that total jerk. So that's where I think I've learned to be comfortable on camera or to do public speaking because you had to cut these promos on your opponent. And so it really helped me to transform. That was like the first phase of my transformation was that lack of confidence, guy that had no friends to suddenly having tons of friends and having more confidence. And, what gives you that is what I really put a lot of energy into these days is fitness. Fitness is aspect of being a pro wrestler. You have to have that big, strong body, that impressive, body. And so if you think of any pro wrestler, you probably comes to mind, they're probably always a big jacked up dude, John Cena, The Rock, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior. Were you ever into that, Jason? Did you ever watch any of that stuff?
So it's so funny you say that. I was when I was very, very young. So talking 80s, early 90s, when I was, let's say, under 10 or 11. But I did get to meet all those guys in Iraq. So in Iraq, every year they used to come for Christmas. And so that would be in June or whatever, they would come out. And when you mentioned John Cena, we got to meet all of them. They would come and sit at the tables with us when we were at the Chow Hall and like have like long 45-minute conversations, and just really, really cool guys and gals.
That's awesome, man.
And yeah, I met John Cena. So everybody that I met, Triple H, John Cena, all those guys. I'm not an adult fan of wrestling, but I get it. I'm an MMA guy, so it's not that crazily different. But of everybody that I met, Cena was the one where I was like, what the hell? Like, because everybody looked as big as you thought they would, right? Yeah. And then Cena walked up and he looks so trim, kind of like The Rock, I think sometimes looks kind of lean because he's got that physique where he looks lean. And then I'm sure when you stand in front of him, you're like, holy shit. And so, but a comment about you, I didn't see it till you started telling me about this, but I can see you got crazy eyes hidden in there, man. Now you do say that. I can see them. That is so crazy. And so from there, how does that inform you becoming an entrepreneur? From just kind of staying in shape or?
Yeah. So, what's funny is those first entrepreneurial, because like no one in my family has started a business. My mom all talked about it, but never pulled the trigger. And again, when we were in wrestling, it's very political. So like you have to get in good with the promoter, and it's not a game of statistics. Like, who can hit the most home runs or the most slam dunks. Sports is very like, if you're just awesome, you're going to excel. Mm-hmm. This is a show. So the people who put on the show have to be a fan of you. It's kind of like Hollywood. It's kind of like show business. So when we weren't getting bookings after getting trained and, people would be making fun of us, we decided to start our own company. And I think that's where that first like little spark of entrepreneurs, like, you know what, we're just going to do our own ways. Because a lot of being an entrepreneur is being a rebel, trying to find a different way of doing things. And so we just had costs that we had to cover. And we just started going to local businesses. I remember a Juice It Up, a smoothie place out here, and said, hey, if you pay for our banner that we want to hang on the side of the ring, we'll put your logo next to ours and we'll say sponsored by Juice It Up. And I have no idea why the guy went for it, but he said, here you go, and handed us $300 to go get the banner made. And I think that's another form of confidence building, is like the physical fitness came first. Then it was the salesmanship, like going out and selling a vision you have, a belief, and recruiting other people to buy into it, And so like I had to get better at communicating and selling. And so like that was the next big part of it. And then now I'm selling tickets, and like we're ordering boxes of 5,000 flyers, and we literally went every day after work, which I did construction. Wow. I'm doing roofs and room additions and all this stuff with my wrestling buddies. We'd go flyer because there was no social media. And we were putting flyers in car window wipers for hours. And so it's like people would stop us. What's that? What do you guys got going on? And we would sell them this. And so that's where I think my salesmanship, because it's a hard thing to sell. Not your average person walking around town wants to go to a wrestling show. But if you make it sound like the coolest thing ever, they're going to go get their kids and they're going to say, I got to go check this thing out. This guy sold me on it. So, that's where that came from. And as time went on, I did put a hard deadline on myself. I said, if I don't have some sort of big contract on the table or something coming by the age I'm 28, I'm going to stop this pro wrestling thing. I started around 16, 17. So I gave myself a good 10-year runway. And I said, if something big isn't coming, I can't spend my whole life chasing this. I got to see it by then. Otherwise, I'm moving on. And what I eventually started doing when like construction was just becoming like just backbreaking, I said, hey, you know what was really transformative for me was when I started working out for wrestling, and it made me feel good about myself. And what a gift to give other people. So you know what? I'm going to step away from the construction thing. I'm going to do a training gig on the weekdays, and I'll do my weekend warrior wrestling stuff on the weekends. Mm-hmm. And that's how I'll set up my day. And so that is another, stage of entrepreneurship and building those business muscles, is now you got to hustle to find clients, and you got to like let people know about you. Again, what do you do in a pre-social media world? You have to go out and you have to just be the pavement. You got to talk to people. You got to get business cards in front of people. You got to join the Chamber of Commerce. You got to ask your clients for referrals, setting up those old school little lead boxes where you fill it out and put it in there. I was doing all that stuff, working partnerships with local businesses. And so again, all to just fill up my plate. Like I didn't even have a team at that point. I'm just trying to fill up my 8-hour day with clients. Yeah. So I think that again, as I look back over my story, I was building one skill at a time. That was when I mentioned selling to that Juice It Up owner. The next thing I learned over time was the marketing, and like, how do you get other people to hear about you? You have to do that before they can sit across from you and you can sell them. So, every step of this story, I started acquiring more and more skills.
Yeah. This is fascinating. I had no idea what was coming. So thank you for keeping this under wraps, because this is totally, I'm gobsmacked over here. But we call this a Spear and Clover podcast. And one of the things is we say, people that follow their passion and use that as their guide to inform and create these businesses that they are super passionate about. I mean, I've said many times, you couldn't pay me. There really is almost no amount of money you could pay me to work 40 hours for a company that wasn't mine, that I wasn't passionate about. But you can't stop me from working 100 hours or more a week on a business that's mine. And so that right there, if you're listening to this and you're not into wrestling or you're not into fitness, like, I don't care. Like, that's just hustle. And so if you're not getting the results that you're looking for, or if I'm watching this thinking like, oh gosh, what can I learn from Dustin? Fucking hustle, man. Like, that's real. And I think sometimes we give ourselves this out of like, oh, well, I didn't get this fancy degree, or I don't know the right people or whatever. Meanwhile, Dustin Bogle's out there hacking it, standing out in front of grocery stores. Some of the most impressive people that I've met are like old school personal trainers, where they're like, I gotta think of his name. If I think of his name, I'll say it, but I think David maybe. There's a personal trainer that I worked with in the past who like literally still now has like, close to $1 million run rate gym. And he's like sitting out in front of the grocery store every single weekend. And he's like picking up 10 clients a week. And it's like, well, that's how it goes. That's fascinating, man. So,
and what's funny is like, those are all things I did. I did grocery store tours. I took people around. I taught them how to read labels. And unfortunately, I think that guerrilla mindset is kind of gone. It's kind of like the social media marketing has kind of like stopped everybody from building those guerrilla marketing muscles to the point where they're like atrophied. People are afraid of it, or, like they have social awkwardness. And so they're like, what? I'm just going to get around strangers and just talk to strangers. It's like, yes, you don't have to be hiding behind a computer and a phone.
Yeah. But the nice thing though, I'll kind of push back on that a little bit, because the thing that I'm noticing is like this next generation of entrepreneurs, who I'm happy to say that I've worked with a few of them. The nice thing about them is there's less drag on them when they decide to pursue something crazy like wrestling or starting a gym or becoming a motorcycle mechanic or whatever it is that they do, starting a private equity firm, doesn't matter. And so there's these non-traditional things. Like right now, if I Googled, one of the biggest podcasts in the world is about eating chicken wings with celebrities. Like, you know what I mean? So there are these avenues that people are going. And now it's much more prevalent that you see people actualizing their entrepreneurial interests, right? Because I'm like you. I think it's so cool that you found something like wrestling. For me, it was like snowboarding. I worked at the snowboarding hill. I liked cars. I worked at the car wash. I liked clothes. I worked at the mall. I liked this. I worked at that. I worked at the pool hall when I have a gambling problem. Like, my whole life I've been spending, doing stuff like that. So definitely we're kindred spirits. So when does that become like a brick and mortar capital V business for you?
Yeah. So one of the first gigs I got a job at was Gold's Gym. And I won't name the owner, but he was kind of known for being a jerk. Like, he was almost like 80s out of a movie, just rolled up in a red Corvette, like cackling with sunglasses, and then would just get out of his car and be a jerk. It's like every bad guy in an 80s movie, he was.
Yeah.
And so I used to open the gym at 4 a.m. and there would all these just hardcore 4 a.m. people would be there. And then it would be quiet till 6. Then there'd be the next batch of just like normal people that work out at a somewhat decent time. And so like, I'm just hired to stand there. There's no one to greet. There's nothing to do. We have a cleaning person. No one wants personal training between 4 and 6 a.m. with me. I'm just getting started. So I just be cruising the internet. It's kind of just around that time that it starts getting popular, early 2000s. So I'm usually looking up like results from Raw and SmackDown. And I'm going on all these, websites where they kind of give you the results. But, there's starting to be Google ads, right? And so there's these ads of women that are basically butt naked, like in bikinis, whether it's Sable or China and all these wrestling characters. Yeah. So I'm sitting there looking at it. Well, lo and behold, a trainer is peeking over my shoulder. She thinks that I'm looking over some XXX type of like, websites.
Sure.
She tells the owner, and he's like, this guy's coming in and he's looking up these porn websites early in the morning. So he confronts me and I'm like, dude, who's looking at that stuff at 4 a.m.? I don't even think I can get it up at 4 in the morning. Like, I'm not looking at that. But he doesn't believe me. He lets me go. And I say, you know what? Like, that's okay. And so that gave me the fire and the fuel to go and open my first place. And so it was a small spot, like 1,400 square feet. And funny enough, it was called Kokomo Fitness. I wanted it to be all beach themed. I had a muralist come in and put like a beach mural on the wall. And like we wanted to give, when someone joins, we wanted to give them a t-shirt that says, I got laid at Kokomo Fitness. But it was like.
And where's this located at?
It was in California, Hesperia, California. Yeah.
Cool.
So I'm doing that. And that's my next venture as an entrepreneur. But one of the ways that I got it funded was I was training people privately in my garage. And then my mom was willing to loan me the other half of the money. She said, Dustin, I'm only going to give you this money if you promise to go into business with your brother. You guys have to be 50-50. And so I don't think really wanted it as badly I did. He just said yes because it sounded cool to own a business.
Sure.
We get into business. And a year later, we have a huge falling out. We have like major disagreements on how we should spend our money, what we should invest in. Should we hire a coach? Like, I'm all growth. We need to open more. Let's get as much off our plate. He's like, no, we do it. We'll save money. And so we just, that's what you hear about a lot of bad business partnerships is there was no like clarity from the beginning. Where are we going? What's our vision? Who's going to own what? We kind of just both figured it out. And almost all partnerships that kind of go that direction end up dissolving. And so I ended up moving on and I just said, you know what, you keep all the clients here, all the money in the company bank account. Like I'm literally going to give it all to you. You're my younger brother. I don't want to take any of it. Yeah. I'm going to the next city over and opening a different gym. And so that one was called Afterburn Personal Training. And so I wanted it to say in the title what I did. I am a personal training facility. So that's where I did that. And now all these skills that I've acquired, like selling, marketing, going out and finding a spot, that at that stage, the next skill I had to learn was scaling a team and hiring a team.
Can I stop you there? I have a couple questions and I just don't want the moment to pass. So you talk about being partners with your brother. It's funny because I know you as where you end up, right? Where you are now. And so I won't spoil that, but just learning how you've gone up from there. There's a ton of people that are going to be listening to this. Well, there are hopefully a ton of people that are going to be listening to this that are going to be thinking like, oh my gosh, I have a partner that's either in my family or I have disagreements with my partner. What lessons can you kind of give us about, what would you do? A, would you partner with family again? B, would you partner with anybody again? And then what would you do? What did you learn from that? Because I feel like there's so much to be learned there.
Oh, there's so many. I mean, the first thing is we both had the exact same strengths. And so I think a partnership where you don't have complementary strengths is not going to work out well. Usually it's like a visionary minded person and a operations person, or someone that's good at sales and marketing and another person that's good at finances and balancing the books. But like there has to be opposite skills that kind of you both bring to the table to make a partnership stronger. I think if you get two visionaries, you're in trouble. If you get two salespeople, you get two just great coaches, you start to resent the other person because you're like, they're not bringing anything special. I could do that. If I just go on my own, I could just replace them and I get to keep more of the money. So I think they have to literally, equal you out. They have to bring something you don't have. The second thing I would say is you definitely got to have a partnership agreement in place. We had nothing. It was the good old handshake. We'll figure it out. We're family. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Huge mistake. What hours are you expected to work? I'm a high drive person. I don't mind putting in a 60, 70-hour work week. But then if somebody else is like, hey, I want the normal 40, I can start to get resentful. What do you mean? We're grinding. We got to build this thing. You got to put in more. And so what are the amount of hours that the person's expected to work? What are the duties? And then I'd say, finally, what is the vision? Like, where do you want to go? And, maybe a 1 year, 3 year, and a 5 year vision. And that way it's like, okay, we all know where we're going. We're on the same page. We agreed on it. I'd say the final thing would be definitely at least a checkup every quarter or maybe 6 months of like, are we still on the same page? Like, do we need to make any changes to the plan? What's working for you? What do we need to do to keep you happy in your current role? What do we need to take off your plate? Like the whole delegate and elevate exercise. Yeah. And so those are some things that I would say to do with the partnership. And I'd say, one bonus tip I'd throw in there, an option for a buyout. Like what if somebody wants to wish you well, it's not ending on bad terms, but they want to do a buyout and go explore another opportunity or do something else. So again, those things are done better in a cool head when everyone's happy, not when we're fighting and we're trying to figure it out after.
Yeah, I would love to kind of add in on that I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. I've been in multiple businesses with multiple partners. I'm close friends with all of them. I'm proud to say that I'm close friends with all of them to this day. So shout out to those guys who I'm sure will eventually make appearances on the show. But what I will tell you is you're absolutely right, is I've found in multiple different ways that if a document exists that we agreed upon when we were friends, and then we become whatever, even just at odds in a certain discussion, right? It's so much easier to say, hey, it says here you're going to clean the bathrooms at 11. It's 11:20. What's going on? Like that's not, Jason versus Dustin. That's Dustin looking at the paper and saying, yeah, agreed upon this. So, your owner's agreement, your operating agreement. So having a buyout clause is not all created equal, right? It's one thing to say, we're going to seek arbitration as opposed to going to court. It's, the seller has the right to sell their equity to whomever they choose. Those like very basic buyout agreements. But I actually like things like there's all sorts of different ones, but there's things called like a Texas showdown where, one person makes an offer and then the other person has the right to either accept that offer or they can actually buy it at that price, which kind of has this like self-leveling, feature to it. And then there's different variants on that. And I've always thought that the more clearly you can set that stuff early, the better, 100%.
Yes.
And so it sounds to me like your brother wasn't, and respectfully to him, I'm sure he's a great guy, wasn't really an entrepreneur as much as he just was enjoying being a part of this family business, maybe self-employed, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And, there's different types of entrepreneurs. There's a solopreneur. There's the intrapreneur. Then there's the traditional entrepreneur. Then there's scales. Does the entrepreneur want one location? They want to take over the world and have 500.
Right.
And so that's the other thing is like measuring your level of like ambition. And that's why I said like making those 3-year goals, because this one person might say in 3 years, we're at the same location, but we've 5x'd our revenue. And the next person's like, no, we have 3 locations by then. What do you mean we're going to be at one location? And so again, just what are your business goals? Align on them. But I was a multi-location guy. And I know that's kind of what I'm going to jump into next. After one, I started, hiring team members and, mistake one of the first coaches I hired walked in asking, are you hiring? And I said, well, we weren't, but I'm sure we can find something for you to do, help around. Hired him on the spot, brought him in the office, talked with him for 30 minutes, said you start Monday. Terrible.
Oh, boy.
So actually ended up being a pretty good coach. Like, it wasn't the worst possible hire. Those came later because I then hired person number 2 and 3 with the same process.
Yeah.
Luckily lucked out with number 1, just decided like, okay, now what's the next thing? Like I need to get a team in here if I really want to make the most amount of impact. And I can't coach. Like my wife only put up with me doing these morning and evening blocks. I did them for 6 days a week for the first 6 months. I ran every session, no help. Mm-hmm. And so eventually got coach number 1, coach number 2, and just started, I think a lot of times this happens to entrepreneurs. When you don't got much to do, you just start making more of a mess. You just start finding something else to do. And so I was like, man, we got this business pretty dialed in. And I mean, we did pretty okay. Like that location without a whole lot of coaching and mentoring got it up to doing like $40,000 a month in EFT. And we're also in a income like sensitive area. Like the average household income's 40 to 50,000 a year. So to be coming out with a personal training facility is charging 150 a month. Like I'm proud of myself and my team for being able to accomplish that, Mm-hmm. And it also allows me when people say, I don't know how well I'm going to do here because of the income. I share the results of that gym to say, no, it's possible. If there's a will, there's a way. You just got to make sure your service is the best in town and you'll find the people that have a little bit more money. Just because that's the median doesn't mean that's what everybody has. You got to go find those higher income earners, bring them in.
Yeah, sure.
And so just started thinking scale and, ended up going to, at one point, 6 locations. And so that was over a course of 5 years. So
before
rapid growth.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Before you scale to 6 locations, you've gotten up to 40,000 in EFT, which for a personal training studio, not a huge one. That's pretty solid, right? That's upper middle class, man. For a single location brick and mortar gym, it's not too bad, right? You're probably taking home a decent amount of money. Are you working with any kind of business coaching? Do you have a system or a book that you're following or anything? At this point, are you just, the school of hard knocks and coming off the turnbuckle, or are you paying anybody for advice? What are you doing to gain knowledge?
Yeah, I very quickly, when I got into business, realized without any friends that owned a business, without any entrepreneurship in my family, I need to hire a coach. I need to get help. So I did hire. I ended up joining Bezos Cooley's 7-figure mastermind.
Okay.
And met a lot of gym owners that I'm still friends with today in there.
Yeah, shout out to Bezos.
And then eventually went on and decided to join the FBBC franchise. Here's a funny story. Again, we're kind of like sharing everything business. Yeah. When I was Afterburn personal training, within a year, I actually got hit with a cease and desist from another gym that owned a similar title gym. And they said, we have it trademarked. So you can't have Afterburn, the title of your gym, same industry. You got to change it or we're going to sue you. Call the lawyer. Is this legit? Are they really going to go through this? And they're like, yep, they got money and they're willing to kind of like get all the Afterburns across the country gone. And they want to be the main one. So I had 2 choices and I was like, I got to change the name and do all this rebranding, or I can join the FBBC franchise, which at the time, the price of it was going to go up. And I just said, hey, support systems, getting with other gym owners. I get to get around, I already work with Bezos, but now he's going to be giving them more attention. I'm going to jump into this and see what this is like. So I did sign a 5-year franchise agreement. and went with them. And so, yeah, I was going all in on that. And they have internal education and training and masterminds, but I was always wanting to also get it from the outside too. And so I'm always an avid reader, as you can see behind me, reading books, going through, listening to podcasts, going through courses, going to live events. I love live events, and really just always soaking myself up with what's going on. What are other people doing? Is there any tips out there that I could take and implement or put my own spin on and, make it work for what I want to do with my business. And so, yeah, that's pretty much what I'd be doing for mentoring.
Wow. By the way, you're the first guy I've ever seen that has color-coded books. Where do you find all the red books? That's crazy. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had them all over the place, and I was like, it's going to present better because I just got a bookshelf. I should color code them. So I went with
man. That's balling. Okay, cool. So now you went up to 6 locations. I think this is something that's important to note. Like, listen, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is not a fitness entrepreneur podcast, but I've been working in fitness for the last 15 years, right? So that's, the strongest relationships that I have are primarily in the fitness entrepreneurial space. But if you're watching this and you're not from the fitness world, 6 locations without being a franchise is astounding. Like the fact that you're able to manage and even get to where you're at now is really what I think is probably your superpower, which I don't know what it is yet, but maybe we can figure that out here today. And so how did you, because one of the things that people don't realize about a gym until you think about it, unless you're guys like me and you, is they're typically at a community gym like this where it's not a big brand like, let's say, Planet Fitness or Lifetime or whatever. Typically where we compete is this like strong, charismatic central figure, which is like the owner of the gym usually. Sometimes it can be the head coach. And so that's really difficult to scale. I was a CrossFit gym owner, still am. And it would be really difficult. It was really difficult, although frankly, Andrew, who's taken over our location, has done a fantastic job and he's stepped right in. But that's really, really difficult to do. So how were you able to make that happen across 6 gyms?
Yeah, I think this is where I learned the power of your team and people. Yeah. And what I would do is I'd find a city that I really believe we could crush it in, find the building, and then without even beginning the build out, I'd immediately put up ads that I'm hiring. I'd spend a lot of time looking. Like there'd be times where I would go on a 6-month period of just no hires. And it's like the gym's being built out. We have 0 team members. But that was always where I held my ground. We will just push off the opening date. We'll just push it off until we got the right people. And I get compliments all the time. Like, Dustin, your team's phenomenal. I go to other gyms. Nobody's the same. And so, again, whether it's the mentors from books from afar, mentors and programs I'm in, I just learned what to look for. And then I also learned to pay attention to my clients' feedback and what I heard them say they like so much about this coach. So, one of the big ones was consistency and reliability. Like they're always there. They never miss sessions. Their energy is the same. They don't have the roller coaster of emotions. They're kind of just that flat line, like dependable person. Because again, I'm not saying that my clients are just like emotional wrecks, but a lot of times what leads to weight gain is we let our emotions get a hold of us and we emotionally eat. So they need an emotionally steady coach to even them out. And so, that emotional stability. Second is being able to maintain that, in a stressful environment. So I'd say resiliency is the word that I would put in there. And, I felt like my team handled the whole COVID situation incredible. Like there was no down days. Like we're laughing, we're hanging out. It was actually a big bonding moment. Like we got together and hang out at one of our gyms for a few months. And it was like exactly what the team needed. We're just getting together and laughing. Of course, there's terrible things and it's tragedy, but they were very resilient. Nobody wavered. And I was like, okay, that shows me even more that I got the right people. And then going above and beyond, if they hear a coach or a client signed up for a marathon, they'll sign up with them and they'll go and do it with them. And they'll bring them personalized gifts and they will check in on them if they hear that they're going through a tough time. And that's what a coach is supposed to do. And that's kind of what I screen for is is this person saying yes to a paycheck or yes to a passion? And I'm very passionate about, who I serve. And so if I don't feel that from the person across the table that's interviewing, they kind of flunk out and they don't proceed on.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. There's a couple points that I pulled out of that. One is, fun. People will do so much for fun. And I think we have this benefit in the past of being in the fitness space where if you're an auto mechanic, some people love it. And a lot of them probably do. If you're an accountant, some people love it. But a lot of people in those businesses are just there to collect a paycheck, right? I worked at one of the bigger banks in the world, and we had some employees that you could tell were just kind of really phoning it in. But then there would be a step challenge with a pedometer, and or a or some sort of like end of year party or something. And all of a sudden, these are the most, engaged people. They're like, you're going to buy a t-shirt or not? What size t-shirt do you want? You want a team blue or team black? Like, I mean, just like really dialed in and really, really focused and totally different people than those folks who were, drinking the 64-ounce cup of coffee every day and kind of phoning it in. It's interesting because the 2 points that I wanted to ask to follow up on the hiring stuff, because this is universal, right? This is something that everybody listening to this, except for currently me, I have no employees, is going to have to deal with at some point, right? And that is, so how are you able to reveal this resiliency, this passion, these types of things in the interview process? What does that look like? And two, the thing I didn't hear was core values or anything like that. Did you have core values figured out and dialed in at this point? And were you using them in the hiring process? Just give me a little more like, what was your success rate in this?
Yeah, it was honestly almost all gut. And I had core values, but like they weren't us. Like they were just like placeholders. They were like respect, loyalty. Like, it's like one words that weren't put. I've learned like the way a core value really ascends is when it goes from a word to like a short little phrase that kind of just gives it a little bit more life. But you just say respect is a core value. It's like, give me more than that, Yeah.
I always say if your core values could be confused with somebody else's, then they're not your fucking core values, right? Yeah. Like your core values better not be the same as fucking McDonald's.
Yes. So like we have 4 now. We have lead from the front, create a positive culture, win together, and coach with compassion. And they sound more like action steps. Mm-hmm. Like, this is exactly what you do to live this core value. Mm-hmm. So it's a lead or lead from the front. Like, so, there's some differentiation. But yeah, back then they weren't part of the interview process. It was all gut. I consider myself a people reader to 10,000. I can really sit down with someone. And sometimes I've struck out, but I have a much higher, average. And so, I just think it's sheer reps. And I think only someone who's done massive amounts of interviews can just build up that skill just from doing that. Just like any skill, just lots and lots of reps. But I would just pay attention to all the things that I'm looking for. And the way that I would screen them on that is I've learned that we tend to be people that repeat ourselves, like history. And so when you ask about someone's personal history, you can probably expect that in their future. Mm-hmm. So if I say, what was high school like? Did you just goof off and drink and parties? Or were you like all in your academics and playing sports and discipline? And guess what? Some of the best people on my team are ex-athletes and ex-military because they continued what they did back then. Mm-hmm. And then you go find those party people. And it's not to say I'm blanket stating all of them, but a good amount continued to just hang out with their party friends. And on Friday nights, they're standing in a circle, swapping stories and just having a beer in their hand. And so, everybody goes through different stages. Some people have that moment where they say, I have to get away from this. I can't be around these people. They're dragging me down, and they get into personal development. They break out of it. But there's a good amount that don't, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was digging into their history to get in that peek into what their future's like. And so I'd ask about high school and upbringing and jobs they had, how long they stayed at jobs. If I talked to your previous team members, what would they say is something they love about you? And what would they say is a pet peeve they have about you? Mm-hmm. And that way, sometimes when they talk about another person talking about them, they'll be a little bit more honest than if you tell them, tell me your strengths and weaknesses. They will sometimes, fudge it. So that's what I found works really well, is looking at their past.
Okay. And so now we've got these 6 different teams. How do we organizationally, you don't have to go through the whole org chart, but how are you in each of these locations? Do you have GMs? What is that process like for you?
Oh, that was a huge failure. Okay. Leadership.
That's where we can learn though. Go ahead.
Yes, we can. My leadership team was me, my wife, and my executive assistant for 6 locations. That was the team that oversaw it. So that's where I had to learn humility. Is I loved hiring, but man, did I love hiring this much? And do I think that I can keep up with all the needs of 6 gyms? No. Can my wife keep up with all the administrative needs? Can we, get all the payroll done, do all the scheduling? Because we didn't put any of that on our team. We owned all those type of operational things. Huge nightmare, probably the hardest that I ever worked in my life. But again, I think I was also a pioneer. I only knew one other gym owner at that time that had gone past 3. Everybody I knew that might have been a multi was 2 locations at the most. So I almost felt like I was breaking into new ground where I didn't have a mentor. That's an excuse. I probably should have looked a little bit harder, but I was probably so busy I didn't have any time to look. I didn't talk to anybody that had that level of organization that they had to build out. So that's where I've learned is whenever I step into new waters, unless I'm truly the first person to do it, there probably was, I'm not the first person that has sacred gyms. I could have found somebody, I could have hired a mentor, I could have asked for help, but I didn't. And so what ensued was a giant mess. No leadership, no organizational structure. We did have a leader at each location, but there wasn't a whole lot for them. In fact, the training was usually like 2 days and like shake their hand. You're now the manager of this place. You call the shots.
Wow.
And a lot of them were not good at it. And a lot of them didn't even, sign up for that. That's another thing I learned through that failure was like, when you apply for a job that says coach and then you kind of get a bait and switch on your job, like you're not a coach, you're now a manager and a leader. They're like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up. And so because they liked me and they didn't want to let me down, they said yes to it, but they weren't clear. And I didn't explain clearly what it entailed. So then when all these extra jobs, we need you to look at the spreadsheets, we need you to make the schedule, we need you to do this or that. And they're like, they're not good at it and they're failing. And now we're getting resentful and frustrated. It's like, it was all on me as a poor leader for not having that built out. So to be honest, I wasn't ready. I thought I had down. I was like, oh, this is easy. We just got to systemize workouts. If we can just hire coaches and deliver workouts, we can go to the moon. Yeah. But I quickly realized that's not all there is to running a fitness business,
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Like if you had been running an oil change place, and anyway, anytime I use an example, it's just whatever's on the top of my head. I got nothing against oil change places. If you're running an oil change place, you can maybe scale that out. Like, hey, if you know how to do these things and we can teach you these SOPs, then you can come in. And I do think that folks like you and myself have had success, SOPing sort of these cultural type public facing service businesses like gyms. But I think that's new, right? So the two things I think I wanted to follow up with you on that were, number one, what was different about you compared to those other 1 or 2 location gym owners that you met? And then 2, do you feel like that was like a crash course, that short period of time there where you had all those gyms, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah. So I think the main thing was, I think a lot of owners get trapped in being owner operators where they just fill up their busy day with busy work and not productive work.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe they hit their level of their version of success. Maybe one gym is it. Maybe they never dreamed of having to. I can't force my dream on them. And so I think a lot of them were happy with what they had. And then if they wanted more, their curse was that they filled up their plate with working in their business and never took the time to build out and, making an SOP or a system or planning like, I refuse to do this after this date. I'm just not going to do it. Someone else has to do it. And changing, I've always said, change those 3 letters around from how to who. How is like, how am I going to make this fit in my day? I guess I'm going to have to wake up earlier. I'm going to have to run more sessions. I'll have to condense my sessions together. How am I means always I'm going to do it. But if I change those words around to who means who am I? I'm going to refuse to do it. I can't. Who is going to do it? And I think that, again, that's what stopped them was they just kept asking themselves the how questions instead of the who. In terms of the mistakes that, that I learned and like, how I improved was, number one, I learned bad markets. Like I had figured it out in one market and I figured it'd work in any market in the world. And there's some markets that, your business model just simply might not work in. For me, I very much heavily get new leads from Facebook ads and then referrals and the right age range. Well, there's one gym I popped open right smack dab in this city where there's nothing but 55 plus year old adults all working, living off social security.
Yeah.
No knock against them, but they're just not my ideal customer when I'm running a boot camp trying to work with 30 plus year olds. And so within 12 months, we had to shut that one down because it was just not getting any traction. I've never seen such small amount of traction month by month since that gym ever. Yeah. And so that was my mistake. I just saw a building and I was a hot shot and thought, if I go in there, it'll start printing money. And so I had to get humbled on that, there's the location matters and there could be bad markets and you got to, really, that's why there's softwares that exist that help you to find where's your ideal customer live and where would be like these specific hot spots to open up, what you offer, whether it is an oil place or a gym or a hair salon. So again, had to learn those lessons that, bad markets, bad leadership. And then, of course, making sure that we thinking about creating what we call now central leadership is our version of a corporate office. But like, I never thought of that. I just thought as long as there's a leader at each gym, we're good. But when you get past 2 or even, I would say 3 is probably where you need it. You need now like corporate level team that literally works full time to oversee them beyond just the in-house team. And so like, that's something that I had to come up with. I didn't know another owner that had a corporate level team. And so like I had to eventually figure that out too.
Today's show is brought to you by HighLevel CRM. HighLevel is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go HighLevel does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of HighLevel CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. I'm super excited that today's show is brought to you by the Global School of Entrepreneurship. Most practicing entrepreneurs cannot take 2 years away from their growing business to attend a full-time campus-based program or spend every weekend away from family and business for a couple of years. Finally, there's an accredited program specifically designed for you to work on and grow your business while completing your MBA. The GSE MBA complements the needs and schedules of someone actively engaged in an entrepreneurial venture while still covering the accredited curriculum expected from any MBA program. The Global School of Entrepreneurship offers a unique offering called the Mastermind to MBA program. It consists of 10 students who work together in a forum-style cohort and meet every other week for a year. The GSE MBA helps you develop skills in critical thinking and strategic planning. Students also develop competencies in leadership, decision-making, and communication with both employees as well as the important stakeholders in your business. You will be exposed to world-class academics and fascinating guest lecturers. You'll work on your business while working in your business. Students are guided by real-world entrepreneurs with decades of experience starting and scaling businesses just like yours. Best of all, I'm beyond proud to announce that the Global School of Entrepreneurship has agreed to offer one Spear and Clover listener a scholarship to join an upcoming Mastermind to MBA cohort. They are looking for someone just like you to bring a unique perspective to the program, and they are accepting applications right now. To learn more and to apply, simply go to www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Don't miss this opportunity to level yourself up and surround yourself with other like-minded entrepreneurs just like you. Once again, to apply for the GSE MBA Spear and Clover Scholarship, simply visit www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show. Yeah, and as I've done this, I think in every conversation, but I'm kind of looking for this superpower of yours. And I think part of it, is, and I think how much of mine too, is just getting people excited about the thing that you want them to be excited about. Like getting people, I love the idea of lead the way. I love leading from the front. I love that in your core values and in your branding, because that's what you're doing, right? You're like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And people want that. People want to attach themselves to, a strong, charismatic leader who's not going to treat them like shit. And that's something that I've seen just in all the conversations that I've had with you. And so at this point, so it sounds like you've trimmed back at a certain point. Are these gyms financially successful? Were you able to reproduce that? And at what point do you start to make some changes in those businesses?
Yeah. So, basically just looked at the gyms I had and decided which are the winners and which are the losers because I needed to trim back. And so, I ended up selling some. And today, now I run 3 and they're 3 strong locations. They're growing at a regular pace. And we're talking about expanding in the new year. And so now I've taken the time and I've put in the work to now I feel be ready to be prepared for it, where I was completely not at that point. And so, that's pretty much what we're doing. And then, I think you're right with that. Like, what is my superpower? I'd say it's number 1, awareness. That's how I'm able to hire people and be aware of all these little things that other people might miss. Awareness to what my clients are valuing in their coach, awareness to the details, having that awareness to say I've bitten off more than I could chew. Yeah. And then leadership, really, like my mom always said, like, whenever we took you to the park, Dustin, you're the one gathering all the kids and say, hey, we're all going to play a game of tag. You're it first. Go to that post. That's the safe base. And just like you organize people. She's like, you get people together to run a wrestling show. You get people together in this business. Like you are a connector and an organizer and a leader. So, basically I did that. And the next challenge I took on, which you see, I just like putting more and more on myself, is when COVID hit. And, I said, how am I going to keep everybody engaged on our mission when we thrive off of in-person connection? And, all gyms had to go through this. And, I just said, well, I'm going to do what I always do. And I'm going to get everyone together. We're all going to go down to one of our gyms, like it's an office, and we're going to just report there and work from 9 to 5. And we're going to make Zoom workouts and we're going to do live Q&As and we're going to just create for our clients and just spend the whole day obsessing about that. And we're going to have some fun too. We're going to play board games and we're going to make silly videos and and that's exactly what we did. And, all of our team got paid. Nobody missed a paycheck. We took care of everybody. And, at that time was when I started having those thoughts of, I've always thought of exiting California and getting set up in a new state. And I actually came out a couple times to Texas. And it really always stood out in my mind, the people's just hospitality. And you always hear about the Southern hospitality and just wanting to talk with you and they're not looking for something. They just want to, say hi and be polite and, just a slower way of life, and as I started to get older and I've always leaned towards busy, crazy, pile on as much as you can on your plate. I started craving that hey, I want to kind of have that balance. And then, as a parent, you start thinking about your kids. And so I'm driving around California and, my wife and I get approved for a pretty hefty amount, but we're looking at the house and we're like, this isn't that nice of a house, for what we're going to be paying. And then we would compare to what we'd get in Texas, you get a much nicer house out there. So we're like, hey, sure, that's for us. That's a little bit selfish, but not too far, just 10 years from now, Logan and Chloe, my son and daughter, they're going to be looking for a house. And what are the prices going to be for them if we're kind of feeling sticker shock? And so we're like, yes, for us, but more importantly for them, to set them up in a place where they can buy a home and not feel stressed out about making their payments,
Yeah. So for the listeners, if you're not paying close attention here, Dustin has 3 locations in California. He's thinking about expanding. They're growing healthily, let's just say. And he lives in Texas. And so to me, that's the result of the superpower. I don't know if we fully put our hands on it yet, but the result of that is this guy's able to manage 3 different locations, considering adding more. Are you going to add in California or are you going to add somewhere else?
We're actually in a little bit of a juggle. Do we want to start and do our first one in Texas, or it is, on paper easier to expand in California because they have the infrastructure and the team and the training grounds, starting over out here. But I'm very, very interested in both. I think eventually both will happen. It's just which one are we going to start with?
Yeah, I've always been, I don't know, I'm sure you've read 4 Hour Workweek.
Yep.
Tim Ferriss talks about the guy who opened Applewood Farms, and he opened it from the very beginning where the CEO was just out of the business. And so to see somebody like you who grow through to that is just it's inspiring, I hope, for lots of folks to hear. And so I know you said you have another business, Gym Reinforcements. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that started a year ago. And, I've just never been one, as you see, to be afraid of trying out something new. Yeah. I'm big into testing. And so, again, awareness. I think that's one of the things I'm strong with. I hired an administrative assistant to come in. She'd be working the front desk, handling all the spreadsheet updates, making the team schedule. But the biggest thing I wanted her to do was to make outbound calls, texts, emails, and sell trials for us. Get bodies through the door and give them a great onboarding experience. And every day at the end of the day for a daily download, there's just so many reasons that they weren't able to get to that. Like, hey, it's loud in here. Like, you want me to call from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., but there's loud music here in the gym. So I'm screaming into the phone. And then there's a coach on the mic yelling at the top of their lungs. Oh, and by the way, if there is no session, people are stopping the desk. Can you buy protein? Can you change my card on file? They're just chatting with me about their day. They're like, Dustin, it's crazy. Like, I'm so scattered and distracted. I can't do these sales calls. And so I just, went to my creative mind and said, all right, well, how can I solve this problem? This position is not working out as I hoped. Mm-hmm. And so I decided, let's hire somebody that's remote. They're in a quiet space. If they work from home professionally and they're good at it, they probably have a home office built out so they can work quietly. And I'm just going to hand them my leads. I'm going to put them through some sales training, and I'm going to see how much damage they could do if they had none of those excuses, none of those distractions. And that first month, they 3x'd sales on trials just by being at home. That was, to me, that was the only thing that was a difference. They were also a professional call. They had a good headset, and they just could go from one lead to the next with no distraction. So there's other intangible things, but they 3x'd it. And I said, I'm never going back. Like, poof. It's like the 4-minute mile. The first time I ran, like, that's it. That's a wrap.
We're not going back. And so just to highlight again here, like, for those people that aren't in this industry, I think a lot of times, and I've worked with hundreds of gym owners on this specific thing where we need to improve sales, but we have this team full of personal trainers or coaches or yoga instructors or whatever it is. And those guys don't want to do it. They don't want to get on the phone. There's two types of people in the world. There's somebody who, when the phone is ringing, they hope that the person picks up so that they can talk to them. And there's people that when the phone is ringing, they secretly are hoping that the phone doesn't pick up. And more often than not, I've found that coaches or people in the fitness industry are that type of person where it's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, be a salesperson or a lead, setter or whatever, you title the role. And so I think that's brilliant. And it's just so cool to see that effectively implemented at the fitness level, because I think up until now, services like that were not available for the types of businesses that we have. So how is that structured now? So talk to me just a little bit about
And so, then just to prove it again, I did it at the other 2 gyms and it worked just as well. And then I was like, okay, proof of concept. And so I started telling other gym owners about that. I said, hey, you just got to go find, plenty of websites you can hire remote workers, but just hire somebody and give them some good training and just show them what to do and let them go. And I saw a lack of action. And so that's where the ideas start coming in of like, well, maybe you could just make this a done for you service. And so when COVID hit, and a lot of gym owners had to let their admin go because now they don't have a gym to have them come in, and they just don't have busy work. There's just not a lot of admin work needed. And then whatever state they're in, maybe started getting the green light, they can open again. And they're like, okay, I want to flood this place. I need to make back the EFT I lost. Hey, Dustin, how did you do that again? What was that whole, remote sales service? And so that's when I said, all right, we're going to go for it. We're going to turn this into a service. And so that's how Gym Reinforcements was born. You need help, call the reinforcements. Yeah. And so basically we just do all the follow-up for the facility. We'll do your text, email, phone call, social media DMs. Basically any channel that people reach out to you can be checked remotely. You don't have to physically be at the gym. Yeah. Most gyms rarely these days get a lot of walk-ins unless you happen to be in a very busy shopping center. 90% of their business is coming from online inquiries.
Right.
And so we check it. We nurture those leads. We follow up with them. First, we always lead with value. We want to give them either a free PDF, a workout video, whatever that gym has for us to give. And then we want to nurture them, ask them some questions, and then get them in on a trial program. Could be a 28-day, a 6-week, a challenge, whatever the facility runs. And so that's what it is it's 100% offloading all follow-up to us and doing it for you. And so most owners are seeing anywhere from 3 to 5x their investment in trial sales on the front end. We're not even counting what they make on memberships because we don't sell that for them. But to just see that you're making your money back on the front end makes most gym owners happy. So
yeah. And so we've been in similar organizations for years, one that I owned, one that I paid for and that you paid for. I think because of that, I think there's been a consolidation of practices across gyms, which tells me, I'm just curious if this has been your experience, but that if you can sell for Gym A in Tuscaloosa, you can sell for Gym B in, Chicago or California or whatever. How much ramp up? Do you guys recommend a certain offer? Is there anything so one sales rep, maybe, is that person working for multiple different locations? And have you found that to be easy to train?
Yeah. So usually we're not wanting them to be in multiple. We like them to focus on one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The only time that we've ever done it is if it's a very slow gym that has a very few amount of leads and there's not enough to keep them busy. Then we'll split them off into two. But usually the gyms, we say you need to have a minimum of 800 leads. Anything under that, and you don't really need us. You probably should still try to do more lead gen and get your list bigger. But for the most part, it's been pretty, solid across the board. There are some tough markets. Again, I learned that with mine. There's markets where there's still a heavy amount of COVID fear. Or, what do you do if a gym has a bad reputation? And every time a sales rep's calling out, they're like, no, I've been there. And they tell a horror story. So we can't promise.
Yeah.
People say, is there any type of promise? I was like, I will promise we will try our hardest, but I cannot promise results. Yeah. Because we just don't know, right? We're getting into business with you, so to speak. We're almost becoming, like silent partners saying you're awesome and selling for you, but are you? That's up to you to hold up that end of the bargain. And so that's, one of the first things when I get on a call with the owner is just shore up your service. Make sure you're awesome. We can't call everybody and say you are, because we're going to burn your reputation to the ground, because we're going to get on a lot of people's radars. We're going to get a lot of eyeballs looking at you. And if they come in and there's wires hanging down from your sound system and they smell, grilled chicken because you just microwaved your meal prep, and your coaches are all disheveled, their hair's all messed up and their shirts are all, got holes in it. Like, you get one, first impression. And if you don't, make it strong, they're not coming back, no matter how many calls we make or texts we send out. So yeah, we're pretty solid in terms of like, if that's good, if they're at least a decent business, we can get you a lot of sales. But in terms of like, the next stage of like, taking stuff off of owner's plate, because we say our mission statement at Gym Reinforcement is to create healthy bodies and healthy businesses. Mm-hmm. And so the client that comes in gets the healthy body, the gym owner gets a healthier business because of the sales. But we want to also now give them that time freedom. And so the second tier service we created called Gym Reinforcement Elite is actually taking over all admin work, like anything office, updating spreadsheets, membership management. People need to cancel or freeze or add a family, running supplement payments. They'll even update scorecards if anybody's running those types of systems, tracking metrics. So that's that next level. But, our foot through the door is usually, well, let's see you guys sell first and then we'll talk about that, which is fine. But right now we're at about half take rate, go up to GRE, Gym Reinforcement Elite. So cool. We're really happy about that. And again, it's very cost effective. It's way less expensive than hiring somebody yourself. But, you know that they're going to be trained by me and my team and led by us and held accountable by us, which is what I think a lot of people like. They're like, I don't like hiring, because that's something else I found from gym owners. They're not good at hiring and training. And so then they get bad people on their team with no training. And so
not just that. Fuck that. The problem is they're not doing any of it. It's not like they're doing all these things badly. Yeah. Most entrepreneurs, and I'm not even say gym owners, most entrepreneurs in that kind of lower middle market, like retail level, they're just not doing it. You talk about having 800 leads, and somebody listening to this, like, I probably have, I don't know, I'll ask somebody like, 100 leads, or I'll have, or maybe they have 5,000 leads, but they're not using them, right? I think from the fitness space, one of the things that, and I'm really hearing it from you here today, is like, you really are working the resources that are at your disposal, and you're like maximizing them. Have you found it difficult to scale the admin side? Have you found it difficult to scale the employees that you're using for gym reinforcements? How has that process been?
Oh, I feel like there's an unlimited pool, because so many people want to work remote these days that I've found no shortage. Like, I feel like the higher the skill level, the harder, like the smaller the pool of talent, and the lower skill level, like these are not gigantic, it's $300 and below. Like you can find a lot of salespeople that can sell that. You start selling Ferraris, now we're getting into a small group of people. So like coaches are a very skilled group. And then you throw in all these core values, and then you throw in all these, they have to live a certain radius of the gym. Like, you're getting it down to a really small pool of people. And so that, to me, I've actually had, more of a challenging time, especially, because I got higher and higher standards as time goes on. But in terms of this business, no, like, I feel like there's an unlimited, and we also have a very good training system. Like, if you come through our sales training, you will come out the other side a fitness sales, specialist. And so,
you're close now. So if you just inversed your relationship with these customers, you're close to almost being a private equity company, where instead of selling your services, and this is just me bullshitting with you here, but like I could very easily see, there was a time in my career, even earlier on, where if somebody came to me and said, hey, look, we're going to take care of your admin, we're going to take care of your sales, we're going to make sure you have people to train, we just want 25% of the business, I would have gladly made that exchange. So something to think about, man. I think you guys have because you're doing the thing that nobody gets into fitness to do. I think that's part of it is like, you become a dentist because of a risk assessment, or you have some connection to teeth maybe, and, or it's a family business, or I don't know why I picked dentist, but whatever. And so there's this momentum going towards it. And sometimes there's some alignment with fitness. It's like, I love working out. I love helping people get in shape, and like making phone calls, tracking KPIs, all that stuff. It's one thing to say that they're doing it poorly. I would just step in and say that they're not fucking doing it at all. They're just not.
Right.
There's a series of questions in your business, and they're there whether you choose to answer them or not. And more often than not, I just find things that are just completely unanswered. So I just love what you're doing, man. Yeah. And so what are your areas of opportunity, not just for brick and mortar, but also for, gym reinforcements and kind of beyond? Yeah. What are your areas for opportunity going forward?
Yeah, I think about that, man. I think about how could I take, like there's always that internal wrestling match, right? Like stay niche, stay servicing gyms, or there are other businesses like verticals that if you took the same approach, but you did it for them, would a landscaping guy say, I love landscaping, but I hate calling all my leads. And if somebody just take it off my plate, or pest control, like, service-based business is pretty easy to apply this. Would they trust it? Or a lot of those guys know, like, I want to hold things close to the chest. One thing I found about gym owners that I really like is that they're not willing to invest in something that'll make their business better. And I don't know if all industries have done that. I think fitness, we're always hard chargers. We have like immense confidence. We're willing to risk, and like, you're willing to try new things. I found there's a lot of hesitation in other industries. The culture has not like hit that industry as hard as it does fitness,
I think it's gotten better from guys like Bedros and guys like Alex and guys like, Joey, myself that have worked with so many people. There has been a normalizing of like seeking outside help. But I think, again, there is this unique thing in fitness where you're like, your body's got to be right. Your fitness has to be right. You got to know all the right ways to do all the right movements. And there is sort of, I hate to use the word like alpha male type or alpha person type thing, but that can definitely be a weakness. I will tell you though, I've met tons of people that are like yourself that are super evolved when it comes to that stuff. But yeah, I see that too. And I guess I'm certain that, the guy that owns a gas station isn't concerned about that. If somebody came in and says, hey, you want to make 10% more on gross margin? Like, yeah, fuck yeah, I do. And there's no like, bro, you don't know me. I'm a fucking carnivore or whatever, like, yeah, that's interesting.
I think that's like other services for gym reinforcements, possibly. And then with the gyms, what I really went double down on, and you pointed out a lot of ways to make this offer better, is we actually when we launched it, we called it Operation Blue Ocean. And our core offer for the longest time was boot camp. And so when there's a lot of other boot camps in town, you're in a red ocean. Everyone's in shark infested waters fighting for the same customer.
Sure.
And often the customer will pick the person with the lowest price. And I guess I was just really confident in me and my team that, if I do a good job of assembling superstars, we shouldn't be in a battle for other people. But that's just the customer doing what they normally do. They just shop same category to same category. And even if they never step foot in to get to meet your team and to see that you're better, they're still going to look online if you're both in the boot camp category. So what this Operation Blue Ocean was just, we had small group and PT that we added when COVID occurred. And we knew people are going to want to be in smaller groups and not be in a group of 30, 40. I mean, I found screenshots where I was shouting my team out for running a 50-person session in a 2,400 square foot building on a holiday. And like, I just knew that those days are probably, if they're not gone forever, they're gone for a while. Like people won't want to be crammed in like that anymore. So I just see my mind, the future of fitness is going to have to be more small group training that's higher cost. And so we pivoted away from boot camp being the core offer. In fact, we don't even offer that as a membership. You couldn't buy it if you walked in and asked for it. We sell small group only, and boot camp is kind of like an extra. It's kind of a bonus that you get when you get your small group service. And so we call it Operation Blue Ocean because there's no other gym in town that's doing that. Like we have zero competition. It is a complete blue ocean offer. It's either boot camps at $150 or below or gym memberships for $10 or $20. And we're kind of in that sweet spot between. And so, that's pretty much what my goal is, to really make sure that we can systemize this at all three to a point where it's just on a track of steady growth. And then I want to open the next facility with this from the get-go. And that'll be exciting. And, it'll be a new challenge because all my old grand opening was like to run a grand opening challenge for, getting on a boot camp membership. So I'm really excited to start one from the ground up, because the others, we kind of had to do some transition stuff, and it's still kind of like 50-50 schedule where, a new one, I would want to do like 80-20 small group versus boot camp. So that's, what the plans are for the new year and the growth ahead.
Yeah. And I think that sounds great. But I would also add that, like, there can only, if you're going to compete on price, there's only one winner. And typically that's Planet Fitness, right? $9 a month or whatever, in whatever industry you're in. If you're competing on price, there is one winner and everybody else eats shit. And I think that what a lot of folks did was they tried to scale up sort of a more custom group experience. And we see that in CrossFit. We see that in Fit Body Bootcamp. We see that in, all different, even like fast casual dining, right? Like that's what that is trying to do. It's trying to make you get some semblance of like a steakhouse in a fast setting. And I think the future, or at least currently, particularly with COVID, but also just in general, everybody's inundated with all the information in the world. I've been saying lately that life is an open book test. It has been since, the iPhone started. It's an open book test, which means the only thing you can really trust is these personal relationships, these one-on-ones, these, 3-on-1s, whatever. And so whether it's the 4-person moms group that meets at 11 a.m. or it's, the gastro pub that, has curated farm to table stuff, but you're only paying, let's say, $30 for dinner. I think that's really where the market has shifted, especially for businesses the size and shape of the ones you're running. I got a couple questions for you that I ask everybody. So if you don't mind, I have 2. I think it's 2. We'll start with 2. This isn't like formal yet. I don't exactly know the shape of this show, so we're still figuring it out. But number 1, if you had unlimited financial resources, what would you do to grow your business?
Oh, man, I would probably do a ton of testing, because there's a lot of things that I don't jump into because I don't have those resources. But it would be, if it was unlimited, I would, new fitness facility opening in every location and giving a lot of people jobs. One of the things I didn't know that was going to be so rewarding until I did it was when I hired my first employee.
Yeah.
And they were saying, thank you for, giving me a job, and thank you for allowing me to feed my family with doing something I love. Because if I didn't do this, I'd have to go get a job I didn't love just for the paycheck. And I was like, man, that feels really good. I didn't think about it. I was just so go on to the next hill that when someone stopped and said that, I was like, man, that's really cool. So it'd be, the lead the way fitness in every town in America, but to also know that how many thousands of people are having jobs in a good, solid company with core values and a big mission in mind. And then lots of testing to get just new people through the doors, trying out fun things like YouTube ads, TikTok ads, billboards, and all those, big ticket items that, again, you can't do until you get to a certain level of financial resources.
At what point is this a franchise?
I've gotten that question, man. And I think it's one of those things that you got a few different options, right? You can go license and not have all the red tape of franchises, because I saw how franchises work, man. And they get put through the ringer by the FTC. They get audited 11 times a year. There's all these like new, whenever something new is going to be done, you got to get every franchisee to sign the paperwork of the new updated. And it's like, oh my gosh, like there's just a lot of work in that. So I don't know if that's the vision. Or license sounds a little bit more like me. Like that, like a little bit more loose. And like, if I get the right people on board, they'll kind of just follow suit, and they won't have to be all this, documentation and auditing and all that. And then, like you said, the final one is just privately owned and private equity and doing profit shares with people that we bring on board. That's the slowest model, because we have to wait till we have the financial resources to expand. The others are using other people's money to expand. So I don't think
we'll have to
have
talk about offline. I think you could do it with no money. I think you could do that with no money, because you're bringing to the table the skill and the SOP and the team and those types of things, and the branding and the licensing and all that. I'd be happy to talk to you about that offline. I do think that there's an opportunity there, because, that's what you bring to the table, right? Awesome. I think that sounds great. I couldn't agree more. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of folks in a lot of different businesses, you could give them unlimited resources and they would just spend unlimited resources. They wouldn't, unless you see the dollar amount in the bank account. I don't care what the number is, unless it's going up, it's not working, after the launch especially. All right, second question is, if you had to start a brand new business from scratch and it was not one of your existing businesses, what would it be?
Man, that was actually where Gym Reinforcements was born, because I was like playing around with like wanting to try some other bit, like taking all the business acumen and trying something else out. I actually love like hosting and like having and doing events with people. So to me, it'd be like either a cool like venue, like where concerts or weddings or something like that. Like I love hosting and taking care of people, bringing people together. So it'd be some sort of venue like that, or getting into vacation rentals, Airbnb, something like that, where again, you're just creating memories for families. I've always dreamed like it's a crazy big dream and I have taken zero action on it. So it's probably not going to happen in my lifetime, but it's like everybody knows Disney's the top of the food chain, but like I don't feel like there's ever a second person trying to give them a run for their money. But like, who's the number two amusement park? And like everybody automatically kind of comes at a level 3, in my opinion. There is no level 2. It's like Knott's, Legoland, all these guys, like they're all kind of number 3. There is no like, oh man, these two are going head to head. Pepsi and Coca-Cola, you know, like Android and Apple, like Disney, and there's no second. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So that's a giant, like, again, if you tell me that unlimited, like, and you have to get into another industry and you kind of merge those two to questions, like that would be it, is like go after them and have the second, you know, choice for everyone to go to.
I think that's an awesome answer. It's funny because so far of all the podcasts, we've asked that same question and every single person has said something around community and bringing people together. And I think maybe it's because of the bias of who I've asked to be on this podcast early, but it's all these sort of maven community makers. And so, whether it's, you know, I've got people that haven't come on yet that are opening bars. I've got people that want to open, you know, anything, event spaces or, you know, Airbnb, things where you are creating community. I just love that so much because that's the goal of this podcast. That's what I'm doing now. You know, I'm somebody who's always sought scale. And so being a coach is like low scale. Owning a gym is like low to moderate scale. Coaching other gym owners turned into much higher scale. But honestly, you know, I'm not moved by money. And this idea of like, man, this conversation we had today, somebody's going to listen to this. And not only may you get a client, which would be fucking awesome, hit him up. We'll give him the contact info in a second. But more importantly, they're going to be like, holy shit, I never even thought about that. Holy shit, I never did that. Holy shit, I never thought about it. And I think, you know, what I'm not hearing in these calls, a couple of them, is like, you got to work 100 hours a week. I don't think you do. I think you got to be passionate about what you do. I think you got to follow your interests. I think you got to do. I think when there's an opportunity for you to take responsibility, you got to be the one that raises your hand that wants to take it, especially in those things that you're passionate about. And I'm seeing that in you in spades, man. I think that's so cool. So as we kind of come to a close here, and I appreciate your time, where can people find you? How would people get in touch with you? You know, whether it's the gyms or whether it's for gym reinforcement.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, again, I'm always about trying to give. And so I actually create a resource called 5 Ways to Increase Your Sales at Your Gym. So you guys can get it if you just DM me the word sales on Instagram. I'm at Dustin-Bogle. And on Facebook at Dustin Bogle. And then if you want to join the group we have for free for gym owners called Gym Reinforcements, just go to Facebook and search that. Any of those avenues, just get a hold of me and send me the word sales and I'll send you that free resource. And it's a lot of what we touched upon today, Jason, just stuff that I've learned, you know, after owning so many gyms for so many years. I don't think I'm any smarter than anybody. I just think I got the reps and I just want to pass that along because you know, we talk about a lot of problems in the world, but I think the one that's near and dear to me is the war on obesity. And we're at a 42% obesity rate in America, and they're projecting 50% by the year 2030, which is not far away. And so we just need, you know, and you're a military guy, so you might really like this. I look at gyms as forward operating bases and coaches as soldiers.
Yeah.
And every time a coach exits fitness to go become a real estate agent or do something else, we lost a good soldier. And every time a gym closes, we lose a good forward operating base. And the number one reason why those things happen is they don't have enough sales. They don't have the money. And that's why I'm really convicted in gym reinforcements, because I know if I can get enough money pumped into these businesses, they will stay in the fight and we'll win this war on obesity. But more gyms close, more coaches go to other industries, we end up losing. And we have a very obese, unhealthy America. This is the greatest country in the world. So I don't want to stand by and see that happen. So,
man, I just love that mission. It's one that I identify with for sure. And I've seen progress, man. I think, unfortunately, there's been a lot of a divide. I feel like there's a good chunk of people that have gotten way fitter than they would have been 15 years ago, you know, influenced by things like CrossFit or boot camps or paleo diets or whatever. But pop culture has really picked up on that. But I do feel like the other half, I don't know the percentages, but the other side has gotten worse, right? Never before have things that are bad for you been more accessible, and the, benefit analysis of how cheap they are or whatever has been never better or worse in this case. Either way, Dustin, thank you so much for your time, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you on as things develop in the business, and I just couldn't appreciate your time more.
Thank you, sir.
All right, have a good one.
Appreciate you, bud.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/Spear and Clover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.